Everything in my life was perfectly normal until that one night. My name is Madison, and I live in a suburb of Chicago with my best friend, Lacey. Lacey was over at my place, and we suddenly got a massive craving for snacks. There was a 24-hour Walmart nearby, so we figured we'd make a quick run for some soda and chips. Lacey's boyfriend, Jack, came along because he needed some engine oil for his car. The three of us set off in Jack's old Ford, laughing and joking around. When we pulled into the parking lot, it was dead silent. It was 1:15 a.m., and only a few cars were scattered in the far corners. As we walked in, the harsh white fluorescent lights felt unusually unsettling. Lacey and I headed toward the grocery section, while Jack split off toward the automotive aisle. No employees were in sight. Only the distant hum of a floor cleaning machine echoed through the aisles. We were grabbing chips when I suddenly felt eyes on us from the next lane. I looked over and saw a middle-aged man in a filthy blue jacket standing perfectly still and staring at us. He didn't have a cart, he was just standing there. I nudged Lacey and we picked up our pace. She whispered that he was probably just a transient and that we should just mind our business, but as soon as we turned into the next aisle, he was already there. He moved so silently I couldn't even hear his footsteps. My heart started to race. We decided to find Jack immediately. As we headed toward automotive, I noticed two more guys, probably in their early 20s, wearing hoodies. They emerged from the candy section and began following us. They moved in a strange, synchronized way, as if they were signaling to each other. Lacey pulled out her phone to call Jack, but the signal was dead in that part of the store. It felt like a ghost town. Where had everyone gone? We found Jack in the oil aisle, but he was in a standoff. A tall man was standing inches from Jack's face, blocking his path. The man wasn't saying a word, he was just staring Jack down. As soon as we approached, the man turned and vanished into a dark storage area. Jack was livid. He said the vibe was completely off and we needed to get out of there now. We dropped our stuff and bolted toward the exit. When we reached the main corridor, we realized the three of them, the man in the blue jacket and the two guys in the hoodies, were standing in a line, blocking our way. Their faces were blank, masked in a cold silence. We doubled back to try the other exit, but the doors were chained shut. It was 1:45 a.m., and suddenly the store lights began to flicker off in sections. This wasn't a coincidence. They were hurting us. Jack grabbed our hands and pulled us toward the back warehouse doors. We were running, while they followed at a slow, deliberate pace, as if they knew we had nowhere to go. As we neared the warehouse, a woman stepped out holding a large industrial cutter. She looked at us and let out a chilling whistle. Lacey started crying, and I was gasping for air. It hit us then. These weren't employees. They had either taken over the store, or this was some sick game they played at night. We hid behind a massive display rack. From there, I could hear them talking. One of them said, "No one is at the car. They're all inside." My blood ran cold. That meant they had lookouts outside, too. Jack whispered that we had to reach the front desk for a landline. We crawled along the wall, hearing the rhythmic thud-thud of their boots searching every aisle for us. Suddenly, Lacey's foot hit a tin can, and the clatter echoed like a gunshot. They all turned toward us at once. We sprinted for the front doors. Jack shoved a heavy cart into their path to slow them down. When we reached the self-checkout, there wasn't a guard in sight. Jack lunged for the glass doors, but they were electronically locked. They were only a few feet behind us now. The man in the blue jacket pulled a folding knife from his pocket and flicked it open. The metallic click echoed through the hall. Jack grabbed a nearby fire extinguisher and smashed it against the glass door with all his might. The first hit did nothing, but on the second, the glass spiderwebbed. With the third strike, it shattered. We scrambled over the broken glass and sprinted into the parking lot. We could hear them running behind us.
It was 2:10 a.m. when we reached Jack's car, but all 4 tires were slashed, and a man was standing by the driver's side door waiting for us. Instead of getting into the car, we bolted toward the main road. I looked back and saw 5 or 6 of them standing outside the store, just watching us, as if they wouldn't cross the property line. We ran half a mile to a gas station that was well lit and busy. We called the police from there. When the cops arrived at Walmart, everything was normal. The actual staff was there, the glass was broken, but the intruders were gone. The manager claimed they had all been in the break room for a meeting and hadn't heard a thing. When the police checked the CCTV, they told us the cameras were down from 1 a.m. to 2:15 a.m. due to a technical glitch. Jack's car was still there, but everything inside had been stripped. Lacey didn't leave her room for 2 weeks after that. I still remember that woman with the cutter. She wasn't laughing. She was looking at my neck with terrifying intensity. I never go to a store late at night anymore. I know they're still out there, walking among us like normal people.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Also, let me know in the comments how you found the video. Now, let's move on to the next story.
This happened back in 2018. My night shift had been canceled and I was bored at home. I realized I was out of groceries and needed some hardware supplies, so I figured I'd just get it over with. I live in a small town in Texas where most things close early, but the Walmart near the highway is open 24 hours. I headed out and pulled into the parking lot around 1:15 a.m. The lot was nearly empty, save for a few cars likely belonging to the employees. When I walked in, I was met with that eerie silence unique to big box stores late at night. Just the hum of the freezers and the distant whir of a floor polisher. I grabbed a cart and went straight to the hardware section. I thought I was alone, at least initially. I was looking at paint cans when I suddenly heard the scuff of shoes behind me. I turned around and saw a man, probably in his mid-40s, standing at the other end of the aisle. He was wearing an old baseball cap and was staring directly at me. I ignored him and moved on, assuming he was just another late-night shopper. I headed to the electronics section to pick up a phone charger. While I was checking the cables, I caught a glimpse of him in my peripheral vision. He wasn't looking at anything. His hands were empty. He was just leaning against a shelf, watching me. That was the moment I realized something was wrong. I left the area quickly and headed to the grocery section on the complete opposite side of the store. I purposely walked fast to see if he was following me or if I was just being paranoid. I reached the dairy section and grabbed a carton of milk. When I turned around, there he was, about 10 feet away. This time, he didn't even try to hide. He stood tall, face expressionless, with a cold, dead stare. This wasn't a customer. This guy was targeting me. My throat went dry. I pulled out my phone and held it to my ear, pretending to be on a call. At 1:45 a.m., who was I gonna call? I said loudly, "Yeah, I'm just leaving. I'll be outside in 5 minutes." I hoped this would intimidate him or make him back off. It had no effect. As soon as I moved, he stepped forward, trying to close the distance between us. I decided I had to get out immediately. I dumped the rest of the items and ran toward the self-checkout with only what was in my hands. Luckily, an employee was there cleaning the registers. I stood close to her just to feel safe. I scanned my items quickly, noticing out of the corner of my eye that the man was waiting near the clothing section, a short distance from the checkout lanes. He didn't come to the registers. Once I paid, my only thought was how to get to my car. It was 2 a.m. and pitch black outside. The automatic doors slid open and I stepped out. Everything looked desolate under the yellow hum of the parking lot lights. I tucked my keys between my fingers, a self-defense move many of us know, and started power walking toward my car. I didn't look back because I didn't want to slow down. My car was parked toward the far end of the lot, which I now realized was a massive mistake. I was about halfway there when I heard the sound of running behind me. It wasn't just walking, it was the heavy thud of boots hitting the pavement, someone sprinting towards me. I spun around and saw the same man charging at me with full force. He was barely 50 feet away. I ran for my life. My hands were shaking so hard I prayed I wouldn't drop my keys. I reached the car and fumbled to unlock it with the remote. Just as I could scramble into the driver's seat, the man reached the car from the outside and tried to yank it open. I pulled the door inward with every ounce of strength I had. We were inches apart, his face pressed right against the glass. He didn't say a word. No insults, no threats, just the sound of his heavy breathing as he strained against the handle. I slammed the lock button. That click was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. The moment it locked, he punched my window in frustration. I gunned the engine and threw the car into reverse. He just stood there in the glow of my headlights, watching me drive away. I didn't call 911 immediately because I was in total shock. I just drove, constantly checking my mirrors to see if any car was following me. Instead of going home, I stopped at a busy, well-lit gas station across town. I sat there for 20 minutes just trying to breathe. My hands were frozen to the steering wheel. The next day, I reported it to the police. I gave them the time and location. They said they'd check the CCTV, but the truth is, in cases like this, very little ever happens. The officer told me he was likely a carjacker or a mugger, but the way he silently stalked me inside the store didn't feel like a common thief. Now I never go to big stores alone at night. Whenever I'm at a Walmart or Target, I'm subconsciously scanning my surroundings. That face, those empty eyes, and the moment he tried to rip my door open, it's burned into my memory. Living in America, I always felt safe, but that night I realized danger can follow you anytime, anywhere. The most terrifying part wasn't the attack itself. It was when I looked in the rearview mirror as I was speeding away. He wasn't running. He was standing in the middle of the parking lot, pulling a phone out of his pocket and texting someone. Maybe reporting his failure, or maybe just waiting for his next victim. My life has never been the same since that night after 11 p.m. My name is Clara, and I went to a large Walmart in Chicago with my brother Ben and his fiancée Jennifer to pick up some Halloween supplies. Ben and Jennifer had just moved into a new neighborhood, so we figured a late-night run would be peaceful since it's usually packed during the day. When we pulled into the parking lot, it was massive and almost entirely empty. Only one old black van pulled up right next to us, its windows so darkly tinted you couldn't see a thing inside. We walked in laughing, but as soon as we headed toward the electronics section, I realized the employees were acting strange. They were all in the same yellow uniforms, but their movements were robotic and mechanical. A tall employee with a name tag that read Eric was following us. No matter which aisle I went into, he would be 2 aisles over, walking perfectly parallel to me. Jennifer joked that he probably thought we were shoplifters, but Ben wasn't buying it. He looked uneasy. When we reached the clothing section, 4 or 5 people were standing around dressed like regular customers. One woman, clutching an empty trolley, walked right up to Jennifer and stopped. She didn't pick up a single item. She just stared intently at Jennifer's hair. Ben snapped at her, "Do you need something?"
The woman didn't answer. She just slammed her empty cart against the floor and walked away. That was the first time I felt true terror, because that woman wasn't alone. 2 other men stepped out from behind the racks and stood silently behind her. We decided it was time to leave, but as we were passing through the grocery section, the store music suddenly cut out. A heavy voice boomed over the speakers. "Staff meeting in 5 minutes." It was 11:30 p.m. To our horror, as soon as the announcement ended, the heavy iron shutters at all the entrances and exits began to slam shut. Ben ran to the front door, but 2 security guards stood there and shoved him back. They didn't have weapons, but their demeanor was aggressive and inhuman. We huddled in a corner as all the customers and employees began to gather in one spot. It wasn't a sales meeting. They were forming a large circle, and that employee named Eric was standing in the center. They were whispering and glancing toward us, specifically at Jennifer. Jennifer began to hyperventilate. Ben grabbed my hand and led us toward an employee-only door in the back. It opened into a long corridor lined with several rooms. As we moved down the hallway, we heard someone sobbing from inside one of the rooms. When we cautiously peeked in, we saw 2 girls tied up with ropes, and the driver of that black van was standing over them. They looked like a cult or a secret syndicate using this desolate Walmart at night for their activities. Those girls were just like us, shoppers who had been trapped. As soon as the driver spotted us, he grabbed a metal rod and lunged. We ran like mad. Behind us, we could hear the heavy thud of people chasing us like predators. Ben hid us behind a massive industrial freezer in the meat section. It was 12:15 a.m. We could have hidden there for hours, but Jennifer had a sudden asthma attack. The sound of her coughing echoed through the hall. Footsteps immediately closed in. 1, 2, 3, at least 6 people had surrounded our position. Ben decided to draw them away so we could escape. He hurled a heavy crate in the opposite direction and ran out screaming to distract them. They took the bait and chased after him. Jennifer and I scrambled toward the kitchen area. There was a small ventilation duct that led outside. I shoved Jennifer up first, but before I could climb in myself, someone grabbed my ankle and yanked me down with incredible force. It was the woman with the empty trolley. She tried to strangle me. Her hands were as cold and hard as ice. I grabbed a heavy can nearby and smashed it against her head. Her grip loosened. I scrambled up the duct and tumbled out into the parking lot. Jennifer was already there, sprinting toward the road. It was 1 a.m. when we saw a police cruiser and flagged it down. When the police stormed the Walmart, everything was normal. The shutters were up, the lights were bright, and Ben was standing there, looking utterly confused. He told the police that no one had even touched him. The people had just vanished into thin air, as if they were never there. The police found no girls and no trace of the woman I had injured. But the most terrifying part happened the next day when I checked my bag. Inside was a small scrap of paper with my full name, my home address, and my phone number written on it. At the bottom it said, "Next time, come alone." They weren't afraid of the police, they were just playing a game. Now, every time I walk into a big store and see an employee nearby, I feel like they recognize me.
This happened to me 2 years ago at a Walmart in Ohio, where I worked as an overnight stalker. It occurred during my shift inside the store, the one place where I should have felt completely safe. It was 10:50 p.m., only 10 minutes until the store closed. The announcement to clear out customers had already been made, and I was in the garden center, which is easily the most isolated and quietest part of the store at night. I was tidying up the area, which is separated from the main store by glass sliding doors and features a large fenced-in outdoor section for plants and mulch. I was alone when I spotted a man. He looked like an average customer, wearing a long coat, maybe in his 50s, with a wool beanie. He was standing behind a shelf, appearing to inspect some items. I figured I'd let him know we were closing. "Sir, we're closing in 10 minutes, I called out. "If you need to check out, now is the time." He looked at me, but didn't say a word. His eyes were disturbingly calm, as if the closing time meant nothing to him. He slowly started walking toward me. I assumed he had a question. When he got close, he said, "I need a bag of potting soil from the outdoor area. Can you open the door?" I told him the outdoor gate was locked for the night and wouldn't open until morning, but he insisted. His tone wasn't angry. It was soft and steady, which was even more unsettling. "It'll just take a minute," he said. "I know you have the master key." That struck me as odd. How would a random customer know I had a master key? Still, to avoid an argument and get him out quickly, I decided to just open the door and give him what he wanted. I unlocked the sliding glass door and we stepped out into the fenced area. It was pitch black, save for the dim glow of street lights filtering through the chain-link fence. As I headed toward the soil bags, I realized he wasn't following me. I turned around to see him standing directly in front of the door. He had pulled something from his coat pocket and jammed it into the track of the sliding door so it couldn't close. My only way back into the store was blocked, and he was standing right between me and safety. My heart sank. "What are you doing?" I asked. Without a smile, he replied, "David, I didn't like the conversation you had with your girlfriend on the phone last night." The world seemed to stop. My name is David, but I wasn't wearing my name tag. I'd left it in the break room. And the night before, during my break, I had been sitting in that exact corner of the garden center arguing with my girlfriend on the phone. I thought I was alone. This man hadn't just walked in. He had been there the night before, hiding, listening to my private life. "Look, I'm calling the manager," I said, my voice trembling as I reached for my walkie-talkie. Before I could hit the button, he lunged. He didn't have a gun or a knife. Instead, he was wielding a pair of rusted garden shears he had grabbed off a nearby shelf. "Don't make a scene," he whispered. "I just want to know why you're so alone." He was talking like a madman, yet his demeanor was terrifyingly calm. He kept advancing, and I kept backing up until I hit the fence. I was trapped in a blind spot where there were no cameras. Suddenly, I remembered the pallets of heavy fertilizer behind me. I grabbed an open bag with both hands and hurled it at him. The soil and chemicals sprayed into his face and eyes. He started coughing and stumbled. I took the chance and bolted past him toward the door. He reached out to grab me, and the tip of the shears caught my shirt, ripping the fabric. I felt the cold metal graze my ribs, followed by a sharp sting, but I didn't stop. I kicked the obstruction out of the door track and dove inside. I slammed the door shut and locked it instantly. The man stood outside, rubbing his eyes. He pressed his hand against the glass and leaned his face close. His eyes were filled with rage now, but he didn't try to break in. He simply put a finger to his lips, signaling me to be quiet, and then vanished into the shadows of the outdoor lot. I collapsed on the floor and screamed into my walkie-talkie, "Code Black, Garden Center, I need help." Within minutes, the manager and security arrived. When they checked outside, he was gone. The fence wasn't cut, meaning he was either still hiding nearby or knew another way out. But the most disturbing discovery came when the police searched the area. In the far corner of the garden center, behind stacks of fertilizer bags, they found a nest. There was an old blanket, empty food wrappers, and a notebook.
When the police opened the notebook, they found shift schedules, my shift schedule, my coworkers' shift schedules, and notes on exactly what time each of us was alone. This man hadn't just walked in, he had been there the night before, hiding, listening to my private life. I quit Walmart after that. To this day, when I sleep, I still see those rusted shears and hear his voice. Why are you so alone? I don't know who he was or where he is now, but I'm certain he's still out there, lurking in the dark corner of some other store, waiting for the next David.